while we talk in general,
I like
we
it.
want to catch up with everybody so everybody knows how. Oh, dude, I like your skeleton.
Yeah,
Sorry.
with all the Halloween decorations going on.
Still celebrating, even though you're not in the U.S., huh?
Yep. Not as big a thing here, but we got lots of little accoutrement.
Fantastic. Hey, okay, so I appreciate, for those who don't know, Dave is currently in Germany. So he is running the midnight hour, and I was keeping him up later. So we're going to flip the script, coming back an hour early, which is good for him. I'm just a little, it caught me off guard. But I'd rather you be comfortable and me get caught off guard.
It's all good.
Yeah, man. Okay, so Dave, thank you for joining the SIG Up Success Series. As you know, or may not know, this is a chance for me to be greedy and find out where all my brothers are and learn. And it's just things that I want to know. And I find it fascinating to see where we've all been, where we've all gone to, what we're up to. And as I've kind of touched base with a couple of individuals, other brothers will be like, oh, what's he up to? Where's he at? And I realize there's this big disconnect. So SIG Up Success Series is based on not the success of your wallet, but the success of you just living life and enjoying every moment of it. And you are. So I'm going to get into you in a second, but we connected, and it was a fun time to connect. 4 years ago? Was it maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Which was that? Remind me. We ran into each other at that conference.
Narlands.
Yep.
Narlands. We were literally, I was doing a trade show for orthopedics.
Yeah, and I was presenting a poster over there. So.
Yeah, and Dave comes walking around the corner, and you approached me. I'm seeing thousands of different individuals, so I'm glad you stopped and said hi, and then we got to go hang out a little bit later on and just walk the streets a bit, catch up. But for those that have not talked to you, we've got some alumni. You're kind of in that phase with Eric Mickelson in the sense that you're a little bit younger, so there's some older alumni brothers that don't know you. And then obviously there's some undergrads that don't know you. So tell everyone, Dave Peterson, who are you, where you're at, what are you doing, what's going on in your life?
All right. So, yeah, I originally joined SIG Up back in 2006. So you were still there at Utah State then. And then I took a couple year hiatus and came back and was at Utah State and involved pretty heavily with SIG Up and with the Greek leadership and stuff. After I graduated in 2012, I'll remember one of these days. I went off to medical school at University of Maryland in Baltimore with my wife, and we were there for 4 years, and then went off to orthopedic residency with the U.S. Army at Tripler Army Medical Center in Honolulu, Hawaii, which is where I've been for the last 5 years. And so I just finished my residency this year and shipped off to my first station, which is at Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany, where I'm working with the orthopedic department here as a surgeon, a staff surgeon, and I'm also the staff surgeon for one of the forward resuscitative surgical detachments that they have here. So just right on the French border and having a good time.
Fantastic, my man. Are you married?
Yep.
I can't remember.
Yep.
Okay.
Married. I've got 3 kids.
Okay. So you got, I guess they're now Army brats because you're officially going international. And
there you go.
How's that transition from Hawaii to Germany been for you?
Well, you said it was because you said 2:00-ish there in Utah right now.
1:45. Yeah.
Yeah. So the time difference from Hawaii to Germany is 12 hours. It's like exactly the other side of the world. So that's interesting. So, I mean, moving across the world with the military is probably different than trying to do it as a civilian, just because of the infrastructure that the Army has, but it's its own kind of beast for its own reasons, getting all the in processing and things done over here. We still haven't gotten most of our stuff, actually. We put it on a boat in the middle of June and just got a notification today that it was delayed again. We won't see it until sometime mid-November, probably. But so we've been
So
piecing
you
things
just kind of
together.
run with, yeah, as minimal as possible until, because yeah, you hate to buy, let's buy another couch. Now we have two when it does show up. So it's, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
gosh. How old are your kids?
Oldest is 7. So we have
Okay.
girl, boy, girl. So oldest is 7, our boy is 5, and our youngest is 2. So, yeah.
Awesome, man. And are you done? Are you like, well, we'll see what nature.
No, we're done.
Are you, we're done.
We know certain ways to intervene with nature in that sense.
Very good, very good. Yeah, I was done at 3, and yeah, I went to the doctor and said, let's just make sure this is
3
permanent.
is a good number.
It is. Um, awesome, man. Okay, so Dave, looking back, I don't know much, and so this is good for me because I don't know more of your. For some reason, I know you and Eric Mickelson were kind of in that same class
Yeah,
group.
we were in the same year. We were
Where did you
roommates.
get? Where are you from?
Uh,
Okay, so
yes.
yeah, because you weren't in Bunkerville.
Nope.
So how did you connect with Eric and get to Utah State?
Yeah, so I grew up in Ontario, Oregon, which is a small town in eastern Oregon. But a lot of my family was from Utah. My dad grew up in Logan, and I still had a bunch of extended family down there, so it was familiar, and that was always kind of wanted to be an Aggie and come down to Utah State. So I ended up there, but it just happened that when I signed up for on-campus housing and I was over in Merrill Hall my first semester, and was
What number?
I want to say
It's
it
my
was
freshman place. Is
I want to say it was 301. We were all the way at the end, top.
third.
Yeah.
It was 106.
Yeah.
So good fond memories of Merrill.
Yep. It's good times. But it ended up that Eric was one of my roommates, and we were the only two like freshmen there starting out, and so we were there earlier than the rest of the group there. So we weren't in the same room, but we were in the same apartment, and just linked up during all the freshman in processing stuff. Now everything's military to me, but during the freshman, whatever they call it, orientation, I guess that's the word. And then, Eric is from Bunkerville, where there were several of those guys that were ingrained into SIGEP. And so we hung out with some of them and got connected that way. So I met Nate and Alex and the other guys. Kind of got rolled into that group.
So did you join SIGEP before your hiatus?
Yeah. So
Life?
yeah. So Eric
Okay.
and I both joined that first semester, and then we both went on LDS missions. And so we only were at Utah State for one semester, and then came back after the missions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So why did you join SIGEP? What was the motivation there? We all do stupid things in college. Was that one of those stupid things?
No, it was great. Definitely something I look back on fondly. SIGEP was in a very different stage at that point when we first, when Eric and I were first introduced to it, or whatever with you guys, because there wasn't a house. Nothing was really centralized. They were meeting, like the chapter meetings and stuff were up in the student council offices and rooms up there. But it was just, I think, as a freshman coming in, but also just as someone looking to, understand and excel in this new surrounding, meeting all these guys that were really like on top of it. I think that was kind of what stood out to me, is it wasn't a bunch of guys that were just there to have fun, although they did have a lot of fun. But definitely knew kind of where they were going from a professional standpoint, as well as just, I don't know, the best networkers in the community, which was kind of a big deal. All right.
Yeah. With you, when you joined
Uh-huh.
SIGAP, what were some of the events? I guess looking back, better said, what were some of the key moments within your brotherhood that kind of stand out?
I remember,
And this is a small group, so go ahead and
yeah,
share whatever
sure.
you want to share.
Yeah. I remember Doc Davis, and just doing a couple things with him that first semester there in the early activities that I remember doing with the group were, I mean, even just the meetings, honestly, it was interesting to just see the guys interact. But then I remember going up to Doc Davis's and doing, like he pulled out his telescope and did um, just a little astronomy stuff and talked about that, as well as incorporating, I think, some of the Greek um, mythology stuff that we were talking about from the Greek aspect. Um, that was fun. But one of the activities I remember with the guys that first semester was going up to, gosh, I want to say it's an old cement plant. You remember that? I bet you were there. But anyway, there's this like cement plant that's up in the hills. If you're driving, gosh, I want to say it was towards Sardine Canyon, something. It was the other direction, and um, it's this old abandoned like cement plant that has a canal back behind it. That's this cement chute basically, and
I
it
don't think I was
it clips. Yeah. So we went and floated that in the middle of the night. It was like a midnight escapade that we did with a bunch of the guys. That was exciting. So it was one of those like,
You guys did a lot of like canal jumping, right?
yeah, that was
See,
probably kind of what
I
that.
know I know you guys did a bunch of also. Well, I remember jumping in bridges or canals, but I never did that because I would take my fall semester. I came back later because I was up in Alaska at that
Uh,
time. So I missed out on some of those summer fun activities, and showed up later in October, and nobody wanted to get wet at that time.
that's fair. It is Logan. I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
doing that though. Eric and I'm sure Nate and Alex were there, or at least Alex. But,
Mhm.
gosh.
What does that brotherhood mean to you? Do you, looking back, I guess you were obviously a roommate with Eric,
Hmm.
um, but you mentioned a few names. Like, is there any specifics that you'd want to share? Because to me, like that is that brother. Like I remember sitting on couches. This is when you guys had the house,
Hmm.
right?
Well,
No,
that
were
was
you still? Were you in it? Right,
that was before.
with
So
the house?
we got the house when, like, the first semester that I was back at Utah State was the first semester we had the house.
Okay.
So
See, and I remember coming in and listening, like just different undergrads, and just sitting for hours,
mhm.
and just talking, getting to know them. Ian Malkovich, Ian was one of those because of his Idaho ties, but it's not about like obviously activities play a big role, but I do remember those individual sit down conversations and how that's just kind of instilled a memory to each individual that I have known throughout the years.
Yep.
Um, and I know each class has a little bit different class. You know, you guys have your group and we had our group, but obviously those 6 year seniors tend to make more groups over the years because we hang around a little bit longer. Um,
Yeah,
but that was definitely some, yeah, meetings and so forth. You can connect in a different way.
that's right.
Especially with how was it living in the house? So I never obviously didn't have the house when we were a part of it, and it wasn't until I was an alumni president. What the heck was that
Yeah.
like living in that house?
Uh,
I know having to.
yeah. I mean, we were the first group to live in there, so we sort of felt it out. Um,
Okay,
and I think, Eric and my first semester back, and then I think there was Brent Crosby was right in the corner room next to us, and we had Oh man, I just remember filling up the house because it wasn't all brothers when we first started because we had a lot more space than we had
That's
guys
right.
that I
Yeah.
don't know if it was necessarily guys that were active so much as guys that, you know, didn't have housing yet or something. But it was fun, like filling up that house and figuring out the whole how to fit the what we our idea of SIGEP and what we saw the fraternity as into a fraternity house setting, which is different. We had a different outlook than most of the other Greeks on campus. So uh, kind of developing those rules and figuring that out, eventually we figured out some different ways to do like meal plans and stuff, um,
Oh, shoot.
and we had the
I
the
so
pool and
then
having
so then
events at
was
the house and all that.
yeah, so then Trevor Nilsson was your house dad, like the house living house dad? Was it
E-
that the next year?
Eventually, I think that was the next year.
Okay, because yeah, being as far as alumni president, I had to keep track of the money coming in from rent, but then also there was the meal plan,
Mhm.
and I don't know. We kind of tasked you guys to like figure out who's going to cook for you
Yeah,
guys because this is ridiculous.
yeah, that was interesting. Man, I don't know why I can't remember his name now, but it was one of the guys that wasn't the SIGEP that lived in the house, and he was a decent cook, and so I think he figured out that that was an interest in the house and volunteered his services, and so he kind of worked it out, and it became this one guy team that he would make him, he would go and pick up all the crap at Sam's Club or Costco or whatever,
Uh
and
huh.
turned it into these giant meals for everybody, which it worked out. It was interesting. It was good. The food was good actually. I remember. But still, it was like figuring out all the rules and like how to make things happen, like because there
Well,
was
we had to get a house cook
right.
because you guys, as far as cooking and cleaning, nobody was cleaning up after each meal. That kitchen was horrible, absolutely horrible. And we're like, We got to figure this out. And it's like, okay, the answer is let's get a
Have
cook
somebody do it.
because that way, at least one meal, you knew there weren't going to be dishes were going to be done, food was going to be prepared, and like breakfast and dinner, most people are gone for dinner, and so it was this weird balancing, but we had to do it because of how disgusting that kitchen would get.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you think about putting 20, 30 guys in one house, and yeah, somebody's not
That's
clean.
awesome.
Somebody's not doing their dishes.
All right, so then you can tell me now what was like the craziest thing that happened in the house. Obviously, when I wasn't around, because I know you
Oh,
guys were always on your best behavior.
oh
But
gosh.
I'm sure there was some stuff that went down.
I don't know. There were several different. I mean, we did some different parties and stuff that were theme parties that were fun. Which again, when you have a space where everybody's already there, it just makes stuff like that work so much more seamlessly. So I remember we did
Mm-hmm.
like an angels and demons kind of party thing. That was pretty fun. I do remember that mattresses tended to go missing, and that was a problem. Um, in that people would escape with them. Um, I don't know that I don't remember too many crazy things that I was involved with.
I remember stopping by for the Angels and Demons. I do want to applaud you guys because yeah, you utilized the house as a tool, and you threw some parties to make money, and
Hmm.
you were successful. You guys made some good money while you were with that house.
Hmm.
Um, so good on that. So graduation, you graduated in I got it right,
I think,
a bachelor's of science.
yeah. So human movement sciences is like physiology, exercise physiology. So I was in the
Okay.
in the PE department.
Did When you were at Utah State, did you know you wanted to be a doctor?
When I first started, my major that first semester was mechanical engineering. So I came out of high school, going to college. I really enjoyed math and physics, and then I um, signed up for Calc 3 or something, and decided that that was really unpleasant and didn't want to do that anymore. And so you look at the like higher level course material, and I just remember looking at some of the like thermodynamics crap or something that just really didn't look
That
interesting to me. And
right.
so um, my dad's an orthopedic surgeon, which is what I do now. So I'd always had some exposure with it, and so it was actually after I left, um, following that first semester during the winter break and coming up to the time that I was going to leave for LDS mission, I spent some more time with my dad, and followed him around at work and stuff a little more. And that was sort of what solidified my idea that I did want to follow in his footsteps a little more than I had initially planned. Um, and that's where I changed my mind. So once I came back, I had already been on the science route, and so it was easy enough to change my course load to something that more reflected a pre-medical degree. So I ended up with like my major was human movement sciences or exercise physiology, but I had minors in both chemistry and biology. And while I was at Utah State, I tutored for organic chemistry and anatomy and physiology. I was a or yeah, TA for physiology. I don't think I was for anatomy that year, but yeah. So I was able to kind of shift gears and go toward that once I realized that was what I wanted to do.
Okay. And so then help us understand, if I want to be an orthopedic surgeon, what was your path versus what other pathways could be? Because you obviously took the big step of joining the Army, getting them to pay the bill rather than, which is smart. I don't know if I mentioned this prior, but like my uncle is a dentist in the Army, and my cousin is an optometrist in the Air Force. So
Yeah.
they covered those costs, and it's been, you got to pay your dues and you do your chores, but once it's all said and done, there's a good pathway on that.
Yeah, so I think that's part of the decision point. Obviously, you can do graduate degrees and medical degree or law school or whatever, with loans or however you choose to pay for things. But for me, I think the decision was sort of between taking out loans and doing it that way, or going through the military. And the nice thing with the military is it sort of takes a couple of the question marks out of the equation, in the sense that the way that scholarship works is once you get an acceptance somewhere, it doesn't matter if it's private or public or in-state or out-of-state, they cover the tuition. And so it just takes that out of the equation, so you can just look at schools for what you want to do or where you want to be, rather than having to think about the money side of things. If I had gone out of state to the school that I went to and taken out loans to cover school and living expenses and stuff like that, I would have easily been $500,000 to $600,000 in debt when I graduated. Where instead I had, about $200K in investments. So it just changes your sort of perspective on those a bit. But obviously there's trade-offs.
You're also not making the 300 to 400,000 a year that an ortho could, at least for now.
No, so that's the other side of things. So there's a couple different ways to do military medical as well. There's a military like health professions school in Bethesda, Maryland. That's so right outside DC. So they have dental and medical and nursing and stuff. But if you go through them, you get a officer's salary during your whole time instead of just the stipend that I got. But you owe 7 years for that 4 years of school. So I just owe 4 years for my 4 years of undergrad. And then orthopedics was my chosen specialty. It's to begin with, and the Army trains orthopedic surgeons very well, because we basically, we see sports, we see trauma, and that's what the military is. It's a bunch of young stupid guys jumping out of planes, and or it's the desk jockeys that then decide they want to get up with their whole unit and play basketball on the weekend and tear their Achilles or their patella tendon. Unfortunately, Oz, I think you're entering that time frame. So, stay active or don't do the weekend warrior thing.
I am trying beyond. Oh gosh, man. Running is my bane. And as you know, I work in help support straps that help me stay active. But man, yeah, I'm getting old. But at least I know I have some brothers that can kind of fix me if it all falls apart. So you got another how many more years in the Army before you hit your potential? Is it 20?
Yeah, if you want to go to retirement, the way the military works, it's kind of like a pension plan for other jobs. But so the military pension kind of kicks in after 20 years of service. So there's all kinds of like calculations as to what you want to, if you want to stay in or what that is. So like one of my classmates in residency did ROTC during undergrad, and then he went to the military medical school. And so after he finished residency, which is 5 years of active duty service, he then owes another 11 years, so 7 for medical school and then another 4 for undergrad, back to the Army. And so, that's his 5 years of residency. Then he's already got 16 years. And so for him, it totally makes sense to kind of stick it out for those a few more years. And then you get, your partial salary back as a pension. But for me, the salary differential is too big. It would be stupid for me to stay in. Plus the difficulty of, deploying and being downrange away from your family for 4.5 months every couple of years, which is what our current deployment schedule is.
So do you have a timeline as of now? Like
for when I would deploy or for getting out?
I guess getting out.
So I think the way things ideally are going to work for me is this is my first station after residency. And I owe 4 years. So I'm going to try to stay here in Germany for 4 years. And then I'll be done. So I'll come back to the States and learn how to be a U.S. physician again.
So all right, let's see if I can share my screen real quick. I was briefly, because we changed, I was going to find this, but we sped it up. So I didn't have it, but I found it.
You're good.
So for those that don't know, Dave and I were talking about him running into me. So this is, what is my date on this?
That would have been 2008.
2008.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2018.
At the AAOS.
AAOS. So previously I sold crutches. That was my company, and I ran into Dave. And one thing, and this is a couple variables, but yes, in orthopedics, I've been involved in orthopedics, specifically orthopedic surgeons. And so I've learned a little bit about 2 types of doctors. But the thing is, and you brought this up, schooling plays a big role in the debt on what types of doctors I interacted with. And I'm just going to bring this as kind of a side story, but you said something that you're being very smart about what you're doing, utilizing the Army. My uncle, like I said, he used it to become a dentist. He did his 20 years and then he took advantage of any like officer curriculum so he could continue to rank. And so he was a colonel at 20 years and then retired. And then he still was young because he did it just like you, right into college, got it. And then he went on to go work for the state at the penitentiary to be their dentist for 10 years. So now he's retired with
the state and the military.
And the military. He's doing all right.
Yeah.
He's doing all right. Because like you, he was actually able to make money while he was going to school and stuff.
Right.
So he's my rich uncle. There's always one rich uncle, right? He's
Yeah.
that rich uncle for me.
I definitely haven't hit that stage yet, but yeah, someday.
But like I said, you know, taking other orthos at your stage, you know, they're racking up tons of debt. That's just, you know, and so I'm going to bring up this little thing and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would work in crutch sales and I'd talk to orthos all day long at some of these trade shows. And I'd say, hey, let me show you about this crutch. It is better. It is medically superior than a standard crutch. And the doctors, the first thing out of the first words out of their mouths, they would tell me what kind of a doctor they were. If it was like, oh, that's neat, tell me how it's better, that told me, well, that was one answer. Or, well, what does it bill at? That's the other option. It's like, tell me more about that, or tell me why it's better, or what does it bill at? If they said what does it bill at, I knew exactly. They're there to pump dollars and cents. And it was very difficult to work with those guys just in general, because it's like, oh, it's just a crutch. My surgery is, you know, $10,000 and you're talking about $100 extra. I'm not interested. So long story short, it was always this, but those that were like, tell me more about it. It was interesting because I've had conversation with those guys. Some of them had military backgrounds and some of them were like, they were there because they wanted to help. They had family in it. It was kind of more of a legacy thing. And so, you know, I'm not saying money's not good being a doctor. Mm-hmm. If you want to make some money, you deserve to make some money. But you did take a very smart approach in that. And out of those guys that I've talked to, there was one more specifically. You talk about you're going to do 4 years in Germany and then kind of go private. There was an individual I met in Dubai who did the Army route, got his degree, did his service, and then he became he kind of got used to doing this deployment, and he learned how to juggle his family. So now he is currently but he was, I want to say he was an orthopedic, but he is currently an administrator at a hospital in Abu Dhabi, mm-hmm. in United Arab Emirates, doing very well for himself. I'm just going to say that. Yeah. We didn't talk full numbers, but if he's in Abu Dhabi running an American-based hospital, yeah. But he took what your experiences have been, and he was literally kind of very similar stories, what you just said, and his is he got this degree, he let the military pay for it, but he got all this knowledge and he built his contacts up, and now that he's working internationally, he's able to network and so forth, and he pivoted to private practice and went to doing it as tours. So he did something in South Africa, but now he's in United Arab Emirates, and he's talking about like he's probably going to go to Japan and do in his next. Yeah. But he's taking his family around, and it's private, making gobs of money, but they're doing it like the military because. He learned that. He learned it's like, yeah, you don't have to be in one place and that's your whole career.
Right.
So anyways, that was my little rant. You were striking a lot of memories of some experiences and some guys that you're reminding me a lot of.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely some things long-term that you don't really realize coming into probably whatever you're going into. But for my field, like depending on what your ultimate goal is. So one of my mentors is he's currently the chief of orthopedics at Johns Hopkins in Maryland. But he, the reason that I know him is he was actually my dad's classmate in residency. And so I think I met him when I was little, but then didn't see him again until I was at University of Maryland, which is in Baltimore, which is where Hopkins is as well. But he ended up, he was one of those guys that did military forever, for school, and then was in for 25 to 30 years, active duty. But when he left active duty, he's still in his, career phase of, his age. He was still in his like early 50s, and he stepped out of his military career, immediately into the chairman position at Johns Hopkins, um, which in your early 50s is like unheard of. So, you know, one of the benefits in the military side is the kind of the leadership opportunities you can get within medicine and other stuff. So you get boosted up to those positions a lot faster if that's what you're interested in. And then you have, so he got boosted up into those, and then he had 15 years of experience in leadership, and was still a young, vibrant, physician going out. And so he's done a lot of things for their department over there, but usually those department chairs are, late 60s, 70s. They're not really operating anymore. They're the old dogs in the department, but he's out running century marathons and stuff. So, like a crazy person.
Good for him. So it sounds like he's your mentor. You just follow those footsteps, right? You'll be running soon enough.
Whew. Never a century. I don't think I'm not doing those ones.
What do you like to do for fun? How, is Germany? Are you guys with your family? Are you able to take?
We take lots of leave.
Weekends,
yeah.
or
so.
Yeah.
My wife and I are going to It's a place called Rotenburg Untertabe. It's about a 3-hour drive from here. Still within Germany, but it's one of the few like walled cities that wasn't bombed out during World War II, and so it's cool here. There's castles and things you can go explore on the weekend, and that's fun to take the kids to. But we've also got some friends here that are gonna watch our kids for us for a couple things. So next month we're going to Rome for a week, and in just the wife and I for that one. And then in December we're going to go to London and see a couple shows and stuff. But it's cool. It's a completely different thing. We're going to go skiing in the Alps this winter. So it's kind of a different life where everybody's putting in their leave, but they're going to Belgium or all kinds of different spots. Yeah. Croatia was one.
Well, and it's easy.
One of my buddies here
once
went climbing
you're in
in
Germany
Croatia last week. So
that's awesome. But like when you're in Germany, you're in the center of Europe. You can travel, like by plane or by train really quickly to some of these places, other countries.
Yeah. So it's a cool.
So that's awesome.
Cool spot.
What a fun experience! Really fun experience. Looking back at your career, would you give, if any undergrads are watching this and they want to be going to orthopedics, what are some key things you would tell them to really focus on now? If they're just in college, they're just starting, versus what you did or didn't do.
So I think just going into medicine in general is a tough decision. And we've talked a lot about money and about lifestyle stuff, but that's if you want to make a bunch of money, then don't go into medicine. There's a lot easier ways to make money. So I'm 34 and I just finished my education basically. So I met up with buddies before I came out here with Eric and Brent and one of my other buddies, Dan. And they've been, they're 10 years into their career. Maybe not quite that far, but it's a very different lifestyle. So it depends on what you want to do, but it's a lot of information coming down. And the way that our medical system is shifting, doctors are doing a lot more administrative roles, and managing mid-level providers, a lot of the paperwork and stuff. You hear in the news about how broken our medical system is, and it is in a lot of ways, and in a lot of ways that doesn't favor the doctors. And so honestly, when I talk to guys in undergrad that are looking into going into medicine, I tell them to look very seriously at PA school, and just think about the different avenues and what you actually want to accomplish. So if if you want to be paramedical, if you want to be doing some of that, or if you want to go into the military and be operational, there are a lot of different routes that'll get you there. The route that I took to get here, like we've discussed, it's lots of benefits, but it's been a lot of drudgery and, stress on myself and my marriage, and probably taken several years off of my life. But, I'm happy where I am. So it's a slog is what I tell people. And there's a lot of guys that aspire to orthopedics because that was their exposure. But then you get into the meat of things and you realize that, there's a lot of other aspects of medicine out there too, if medicine's what you're interested in, or from the sports aspect, if you like to be involved in sports, there's so many different parts of that career that, that part of life that you can be involved in. So if you're set on being a doctor, then, first I'd say, I'm sorry, you have a lot of pain in your future. And second, I think for guys like us, where we're, trying to have a little bit of everything in life and really just have a well-rounded life, which I think is what a lot of at least the brothers that I have in SIGEP really embody. So having a family and knowing your family, loving your kids, spending time with your kids, and doing things together, along with being able to be successful in your career, is always it's a balance. It's a balancing act, and it takes a lot of intentional work. So I think if you're going into any career that requires the amount of hours and the amount of investment and the amount of years of training and stuff, just realizing that you need to set up a solid base, that you need to know who your people are. You need to prepare your wife or husband or whoever about let them know what they're in for, because they may not be signing up for that if they understand. So that decision is
I don't know. Oh,
you're good.
Yeah. I don't know if you did ever know Brian Dewey. If you might have been right before your mission, then maybe.
Yeah, I think he was,
but
right before, but I don't know if I ever.
So I don't know if you've listened. I've had a chance to talk with him. He's an anesthesiologist, but yeah, he talked about those same pain points as far as like family. Like your wife won't see you for hours. Like your schedules are all over the place, and it's dictated by the hospital, and you're just this little cog that has to. Like a yes man, you have to do it. So yeah, any marriage
and that's
anesthesia.
Goes through. Yeah. No.
Yeah, you've got the medical and the military. That's two bosses in some aspect.
Yeah, I mean, there's times of residency when, like I'd help put my kids to bed on Sunday night, and I wouldn't see them again until, or at least not see them awake until Thursday or Friday. And you'd have 100 to 120 hour weeks that it's just is what it is, and you just don't have control over your schedule. And then even once you're out of training, there's an amount to which you're a slave to your work, and you have to be able to put that first. And so getting to the point in your marriage where that can be understood, and that you're still putting your family and your marriage first, while also needing to be available, to go on a last minute 3-day mission to Morocco to run medical support, is a difficult balance. So I think that's something to to realize.
Yeah, you're a better man than I. I have a hard time even just working from home. It's just like too much family. Gosh. It's great for my youngest. Finally got to kindergarten, so I don't have to see
Oh
him.
gosh, yeah.
Um,
School is important.
but to each his own. What's with you? Are you in Germany? Are you doing these trips? Are you doing some international quick round trips, or are you kind of
Yeah, I mean,
being active duty ortho? What does that entail?
so the unit I'm with is a little different. So most of the guys in the department over here basically just work at the hospital, um, and that's their full-time job. And then beyond that, they're also in the military. So that means that so one of my good buddies is in that position. He's not with the rapid deployment unit that I'm with, but he just works at the hospital, but he's up for deployment. His number came up, and so he's going to be leaving in December for 4.5 months, to an undisclosed location. Um,
Hmm.
but for me, I'm part of this a rapid deployment resuscitative surgical division, and so we actually just spent this last week. We were doing a tent exercise, like a tent exercise, where we went and set up all of our gear, and ran through some practice scenarios and stuff, just coordinating the team, because it's people. There's part of that team is myself as the orthopedic surgeon. There's a trauma surgeon, so general surgeon. There's a couple ED doctors that are trained ED physicians, and then we have several nurses, several techs, and a couple LPNs and CRNA, so certified nurse anesthetist, that are all part of that group. And so for 3 months out of the year, we're on what's called RIF, which is a rapid recall force. So for any special ops missions or things where they might need high level like surgical capable medical backup, we're on call for quick recall to be spun up and put on a plane and sent to wherever they need us to be ready to receive casualties within, from once they notify us. It's like ready to receive casualties in an austere environment within 12 hours is the idea.
And so, in that trade show that I met you at, I walked through one of those like military tents, straight up surgical rooms that you can put up in the middle of nothing, and everything is in crates, and it just pops up. And that was really cool to learn about. Cool, very fascinating, man. You've done some really neat things. You're doing some amazing things. What's next for Dave? Like, I know military got 4 years, but where do you see yourself in, say, 10 years?
Man,
In a perfect world, if you could decide that.
Some stability. So I think finally figuring out where we want to put down some roots, which, I think that a lot of the guys in my age, have a house they're probably going to be in for the next 20 years, that sort of thing. But
they're stuck.
We're not there.
You can choose.
Yeah. So I think, getting back a little bit closer to family, and getting established in something that I'm going to be able to do a little longer term. So
Okay.
I think I'll finish my time here. I'll probably do a little bit more training because I can't get enough school on my way back to practice, and then I'll probably be working for a hospital somewhere on the West Coast and doing total joints if I can, joint replacements, working with our aging population.
Yeah. Do you are you specialized in anything specific? Are you looking more lower extremities, lower legs, or are you doing arms or?
So right now I'm general. I do a little everything.
General.
But
okay.
I think ultimately I'm going to probably specialize in total joint replacement. So joint arthroplasty, which is hips and knees for the most part. Some guys do shoulders, but mostly hips and knees.
Don't worry about promoting my crutches because I sold that company.
Fair enough.
So focus on the surgery. I don't care about the billable on crutches anymore.
That's fair.
Awesome. Well, Dave, what about if you did not have to work? Let's just say you had all the money in the world. what would you do with your time? You brought up a couple of things you enjoy. I can tell.
Yeah.
That getting out and exploring, traveling, and even continuing education to some degree. But what do you like to do in your free time if you didn't have to work for the rest of your life?
Yeah, honestly, I think that I would travel. There's so many things to see. That's been one of our goals with my wife. We try to do some type of international trip on a yearly basis. So even when I was in medical school, we went to Germany actually for one of our trips. We also went to Spain for a trip, and we went to Mexico during residency. We went to New Zealand. We went to Japan. Before medical school, we took a trip to Eastern Asia and did Japan, Hong Kong, Thailand, Cambodia, all those. I think, if I had the time to do it, I'd establish some type of base back home, and then spend time traveling with my wife and kids. I guess they'd have to come along for some of it, at least for the next several years. But.
So that's the tough balance. It seems like Eric Mickelson's figuring out how to travel with kids. I'm trying to as well, but man, that's always the hardest. Is when the kids are involved. It's not as much as a vacation. But it's an educational vacation.
It does change things, yeah. So we're getting our kids a love of hiking around castles. That's what we're doing right now.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Well, Dave, I really appreciate your time. It was good to catch up. I want to just finally leave those brothers watching, and I want to give you the opportunity to share two last things. Well, first of all, is there any one thing you'd want to share that I have not asked? You're like, I definitely want to share this story, or this. Did you say everything? You answered my questions to my satisfaction.
Well, I think
I got told by somebody that I didn't bring up a certain question. They were really expecting it. I kind of just wing it.
I think it's probably a little cliche, but I some of my best friends now are guys that I think of as my best friends, even though I haven't lived within 3,000 miles of them in the last 10 years, are still those guys that I live with at SIGEP, and that I spent time with, building that camaraderie as brothers. I would say realize that as an undergrad or whatever, if you have time to really internalize those friendships, you're never going to have that same amount of leeway, probably, especially if you go into medicine, not for the next decade. So, those are my best friends. Those are the guys I think of, and I think of who I'd want to take a vacation with to somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Or, anytime I do come back to the States, that's who I end up hooking up with, is those same few guys that I really became friends with in SIGEP. So just realize that you really are forming some friendships that are lasting and formative. And, I hope that it can be that for you as much as it was for me.
Absolutely. Awesome. And lastly, that was kind of I was targeted towards the undergrads. What's one last thing you want to say to your brothers that might watch this? Dan Grover, Travis, whomever.
Yeah. Come visit. Come to Germany. We'll see you.
Okay, you heard that. He has opened the keys to sleep on his couch, maybe guest bedroom.
Oh, we've got
whatever. He wants you to come on over.
We've got a great guest bedroom. It's good. This is a good.
Perfect.
The train station's across the street, far enough away you can't hear it, but close enough to walk.
Close enough you can. Very good.
Roll a suitcase.
There it is. That's a good open invitation. Europe, I don't know if Europe's in my forecast, but if it is in the next 4 years, I definitely will hit you up.
That's good, man.
I love to travel like you, and I think we sometimes get stuck too much in our own routine in life, and we don't get out of that comfort zone.
It's true.
And the world, if you explore the world, it's so amazing, so amazing what's out there.
We're spoiled in a lot of ways as Americans in the fact that we've lived most of our lives only needing to speak one language, but the rest of the world honestly kind of bends a little bit to that, in that anywhere you go, you can get by for the most part with English. So you're already kind of set up in a good way there. But everybody lives a little different, and until you experience that, it's hard to appreciate what you have fully. Yeah.
Okay, my last question before I do sign
Sure.
up. Food. Do you have a favorite food while you're there that you've come across yet?
As far as like the German stuff, I really like currywurst. So it's like a
currywurst.
It's a curry, like a spicy sauce with the German bratwurst. So they make some very good, some very flavorful brats and stuff here, and then add that to a curry sauce.
Currywurst. Okay.
Delicious.
Okay. Dave, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to talk with one of my brothers, and wish you the best.
Thanks, Oz.
If you guys need to hit him up, he's got LinkedIn. We can connect him. But yeah, if you're undergrad and want to be an orthopedic surgeon, Dave will kind of steer you and guide you going to the military. He'll pay for it.
I'll tell you. I'll warn you of some of the pitfalls and direct you if you decide to make that mistake. Decision.
All right, brother. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bob.